I'm Helena Brooks, 39, abandoned stepmother, once the anonymous voice behind a blog written at my kitchen table during sleepless nights. I don't have a husband. I share no blood with the daughter who calls me Mom. And I certainly had no intention of becoming an overnight internet sensation after attending a wedding I never should have been invited to. But life has its own plans. I went there to prove I'd survived, to show that Caleb, the man who left me for a more perfect life, hadn't broken me. What I didn't expect was for my daughter to step into the center of the dance floor, in front of a glittering crowd, and speak the truth so loud the room fell silent. And that was how everything began again. Not from pain, but from a single sentence that split the night in two. I'm Caleb's daughter and I have something to say. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays were when I cleaned out the junk mail, and there it was, nestled between grocery store flyers and credit card offers. Gold embossing on cream cardstock, so thick it could have been a dinner plate. Caleb Weston and Brooke Layton request the honor of your presence. My hands trembled as I read his name. 5 years. 5 years since he'd walked out our door with a banker's box of his things and left me with an empty nursery and his 17-year-old daughter from his first marriage. Now he owned a vineyard in Napa Valley. Now he was marrying an Instagram lifestyle blogger with perfect teeth and a book deal. I almost threw it in the trash right then. Would have, if Zoe hadn't walked into the kitchen. What's that? She peered over my shoulder, her dark hair still messy from sleep. At 22, she looked nothing like Caleb, thank God for that. She'd inherited her late mother's delicate features and fierce spirit. Nothing. I moved toward the garbage can. Mom. She caught my wrist. We both froze at the word. She'd started calling me that 3 years ago, on a random Thursday when I'd stayed up all night helping her through a panic attack. Neither of us had acknowledged it then, but it stuck. She took the invitation from my hand and read it slowly. Her jaw tightened, the only sign she was affected. We should go, she said finally. Zoe, no. Absolutely not. Not to beg or make a scene. She set the invitation on our scratched kitchen table, the one we'd bought at a garage sale when money got tight. To end it properly. To show him we're fine without him. I wanted to tell her we didn't need to prove anything to anyone. But something in her eyes, a need for closure I recognized too well, made me pause. I'll think about it, I said. She nodded and poured herself coffee in her favorite mug, the one with a chip on the handle. By the way, she said casually, too casually, they're hiring extra servers for the wedding. Good money. I already applied. Zoe. Someone should be there to catch you if you fall. She didn't look at me as she said it, just stirred sugar into her coffee with deliberate slowness. That's what family does, right? My throat tightened. This girl who had no biological connection to me, who could have blamed me for her father's abandonment, who could have left when she turned 18. She was planning to spend her Saturday night in a server's uniform just to stay close to me. I pulled her into a hug. She stiffened at first. We weren't naturally physically affectionate, people then relaxed against me. We don't have to do this, I whispered into her hair. Maybe we need to, she whispered back. That night, I stared at the invitation for hours. Caleb's handwriting on the envelope, he'd addressed it personally. After everything, he'd personally invited me to watch him marry someone else. The cruelty of it sat heavy in my chest. Or maybe it wasn't cruelty. Maybe it was worse. Maybe it was indifference. People think the worst part of being left is the leaving. It's not. It's what comes after the silence, where laughter used to be, the empty side of the bed that stays cold no matter how many blankets you pile on. The way friends look at you with that mixture of pity and relief that it wasn't them. Caleb left on a Thursday morning in March. I was 4 months out from losing the baby, still bleeding occasionally, still waking up with my hand on my deflated belly. He said he couldn't watch me grieve anymore. Said I was pulling him under. Said Zoe needed stability, and I wasn't providing it. Funny thing about that, Zoe stayed with me. He doesn't get to take everything, she'd said that first night, standing in our doorway with a duffel bag while Caleb honked from the car. You're my family too. She was 17, angry at the world, and had every reason to follow her father to his fresh start. Instead, she unpacked her bag in her same room and made us scrambled eggs for dinner because I couldn't stop crying long enough to cook. The first year was hell. Caleb had left debts I didn't know about, business partners who wanted their money. Our house went into foreclosure. My freelance design clients dried up when word got around that I was unstable. Small towns have long memories and longer tongues. Some nights, I'd find Zoe doing homework at the kitchen table at 2 a.m. because she couldn't sleep either. We'd sit in silence, her doing calculus while I sketched logos for clients who might never hire me. The sound of her pencil on paper became a kind of prayer, proof we were still here, still trying. "Why did you stay?" I asked her once, 6 months after he left. She looked up from her textbook. "Because you stayed for me first. When Mom died and Dad brought home this random woman to help raise me, you could have just been the stepmom. But you weren't. You were just Mom." I started crying then, ugly sobs that shook my whole body. Zoe didn't say anything, just reached across the table and held my hand until I stopped. The healing came in inches. I found a therapist who worked on a sliding scale. Started a blog called Second Bloom, about rebuilding after loss. Connected with other women who'd been left holding the pieces of someone else's broken promises. Slowly, word by word, comment by comment, I built something that was mine. Zoe graduated high school with honors. I sat in the auditorium alone. Caleb didn't come and cheered so loud other parents turned to stare. She got into Oregon State with a partial scholarship. We celebrated with takeout Chinese and box wine, toasting to surviving. "You know what's funny?" she said that night, a little tipsy on cheap Moscato. "He thought he was leaving you with nothing. But he left you with me. And I'm fucking awesome." I laughed until I cried, and then I cried until I laughed again. She was right. She was fucking awesome. 2 years later, my blog post, "You Don't Need Blood to Be a Mother," went viral. Suddenly, I had speaking requests, a literary agent sniffing around, sponsors wanting to support the Second Bloom community. I was becoming someone, not in spite of being left but because of what I'd built from the ashes. Which is probably why Caleb sent the invitation. He always did hate being upstaged. We drove to Napa in my ancient Honda Civic, the one with the rattling exhaust pipe and temperamental air conditioning. Zoe had wanted to get her server uniform at the venue, but I insisted on picking her up after her shift prep. The hills rolled by in gold and green, picture-perfect prosperity that made my teeth ache. "You can still back out," Zoe said for the 10th time. "So can you. I'm getting paid $12 an hour plus tips." She adjusted her black bow tie in the visor mirror. "At least I have a reason to be here." Caleb's vineyard sprawled across 40 acres of prime real estate. The sign at the entrance Weston Hills Winery was tastefully understated in brushed bronze. Of course, he'd named it after himself. Even his midlife crisis came with a brand strategy. I'd worn my best dress, a navy sheath I'd bought secondhand but that fit like it was tailored for me. Simple pearl earrings my mother had left me. Hair pulled back in a low chignon that had taken 45 minutes and a YouTube tutorial to perfect. I looked good. More importantly, I looked like I wasn't trying to look good. "Drop me at the service entrance," Zoe said. "I'll find you inside." "Zoe. I'll be fine. Go show them who Helena Brooks really is." The main entrance was flanked by uniformed valets and decorated with white roses that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. I handed over my keys to a kid who looked at my car like it might contaminate the BMWs and Teslas. Inside, the reception hall took my breath away. Exposed wooden beams, chandeliers made from wine bottles, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the vineyards. Guests in designer cocktail dresses and summer suits mingled with champagne flutes, their laughter tinkling like expensive wind chimes. I found my place card at table 12. The back corner, naturally. Far enough from the head table that I'd need binoculars to see the ceremony. Close enough to the kitchen that I'd hear every plate crash. I almost laughed at the pettiness of it. Helena? Helena Brooks? I turned to find a woman in her 50s, silver hair cut in a sharp bob, looking at me with recognition dawning on her face. "Yes? Oh my God, I follow your blog. Second Bloom changed my life after my divorce. I'm Sharon." She grabbed my hand with both of hers. "What are you doing here?" Before I could answer, more women gathered. Apparently, table 12 was where Caleb had stuck all the inconvenient invites, distant relatives, business obligations, and his ex-wife. What he hadn't counted on was that half of them were my readers. "Is it true you're writing a book? Your post about rebuilding credit after financial abuse saved me. My daughter sent me your article about chosen families. We're talking again because of you. I was surrounded by warmth when I saw him. Caleb stood near the bar, unchanged except for some silver at his temples and a tan that spoke of weekends on golf courses. He was watching me, his expression unreadable. I raised my champagne glass in a small toast. He looked away first. That's when I saw her, Brooke. She was everything Instagram had promised. Willowy, blonde, with that specific brand of ethereal beauty that photographed well from every angle. Her dress probably cost more than my car. She was laughing at something, head thrown back, one hand on Caleb's arm like she was afraid he might float away. She caught me looking and smiled. Not a nice smile. The kind of smile a cat gives a mouse before the pounce. This was going to be a long night. The ceremony was beautiful in that impersonal way expensive weddings often are. Perfect flowers, perfect music, perfect vows that sounded like they'd been written by a committee. I sat in my back corner and watched Caleb promise to love and cherish someone else. The words didn't sting like I'd expected. They just sounded hollow, like echoes in an empty room. Zoe appeared at my elbow during cocktail hour with a tray of canapés. "You okay?" she whispered. "Better than okay." I took a mushroom tart. "I'm surrounded by fans, apparently." She grinned. "Table 12 is talking about starting a second Bloom book club. Also, the bride is a piece of work. She made one server cry already because the napkins were folded wrong." "Zoe." "I'm observing, not judging." She winked and moved on to the next table. Dinner was surf and turf with wine pairings for each course. The women at my table kept the conversation flowing, sharing stories of their own resurrections. I found myself laughing, genuinely enjoying their company. Maybe this wouldn't be so bad after all. Then came the speeches. The best man told stories about Caleb's business acumen. The maid of honor gushed about Brooke's perfect taste. Normal wedding toast territory. I was checking my phone under the table when Brooke stood up and took the microphone. "I want to thank you all for being here to celebrate our love," she began, her voice, honey, sweet. "Caleb and I found each other at just the right time. He'd been through so much, poor thing. Lost and broken by someone who tried to clip his wings." My stomach dropped. The women at my table exchanged glances. "But that's the thing about true love," Brooke continued, looking directly at me now. "It finds you when you're ready to soar. When you've left behind the people who weigh you down, who trap you with their sadness and their inadequacies." The room was silent except for the soft clink of silverware against plates. A few people followed her gaze to me. Heat crawled up my neck. "Some people," she said, twirling her champagne flute, "think love means possession. Control. Making someone feel guilty for wanting more than a small life in a small town. But real love? Real love sets you free." She was rewriting history in real time, painting me as some kind of controlling shrew who'd held Caleb back. I gripped my napkin under the table, knuckles white. "I'm just so grateful." Brooke's voice caught dramatically. "That I could save him from all that. That I could show him what partnership really means. What a woman who has her life together can offer." Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. Caleb sat there, smiling blandly, not stopping her. Not defending me. Just like always letting someone else be the bad guy while he played innocent. "And I promise," Brooke raised her glass, "to never be the kind of woman who drives a man away. Who makes him feel trapped. Who loses his child along with his respect." She did not just say that. She did not just reference my miscarriage at her wedding toast. I was frozen, pinned to my chair by shock and humiliation. The women at my table looked murderous on my behalf, but what could they do? You can't tackle a bride at her own wedding, no matter how much she deserves it. Some women, Brooke continued, seemingly oblivious to the uncomfortable silence, don't understand that you can't keep a man by making him pity you. By using a child that isn't even yours as emotional blackmail. Thank God Caleb's daughter saw through. "Excuse me." Every head turned. Zoe stood in the middle of the dance floor, having materialized from nowhere. She pulled off her server's cap, letting her dark hair fall around her shoulders. "I'm Caleb's daughter," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the space. "And I have something to say." The silence was complete. You could have heard a pin drop, a heart break, a carefully constructed lie shatter on the floor. Zoe stood there in her server's uniform, spine straight and eyes blazing. She looked so young and so fierce that my heart cracked open all over again. "I'm sorry to interrupt," she said, though she clearly wasn't. "But when someone's rewriting your life story, sometimes you need to speak up." Caleb had gone white. "Zoe, sweetheart. Don't." She held up a hand. "You lost the right to call me sweetheart when you left us. Both of us." Brooke's perfect mouth opened and closed like a fish. The microphone hung limp in her hand. "You want to talk about the truth?" Zoe addressed the room but looked at her father. "Here's the truth. That woman you're all supposed to pity? She saved me. When my dad walked out because his girlfriend had a miscarriage and he couldn't handle her grief, she stayed. When he left us with debt and no forwarding address, she worked 3 jobs to keep our home. My vision blurred. I tried to stand, to stop her, but Sharon put a gentle hand on my arm. She didn't give birth to me," Zoe continued. "My biological mother died when I was 8. But Helena? Helena showed up to every school play, every soccer game, every nightmare at 3 a.m. She taught me to drive in that beat-up Honda outside. She held my hair when I got food poisoning. She stayed." The wedding guests were transfixed. Someone's phone was out, recording. Caleb looked like he wanted the ground to swallow him whole. "You talk about emotional blackmail." Zoe laughed, bitter and sharp. "The only manipulation I've seen is a man who abandoned his family, and then had the audacity to invite them to watch him do better with someone else. The only trap here is the story you're telling yourself to feel better about being a coward. That's enough." Caleb finally found his voice. "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly." Zoe's voice was steady now, eerily calm. "You got scared. Things got hard and messy and real, and you ran. That's fine. That's your choice. But don't you dare stand there and let her," she pointed at Brooke, "turn Helena into the villain of your story. She's the hero of mine." She looked at me then, and her eyes were soft. "She didn't need blood to love me. Didn't need legal papers to stay. She chose me every single day, even when choosing me meant losing everything else. That's what real love looks like." My face was wet. When had I started crying? The women at my table were crying too, and I could see others throughout the room dabbing at their eyes. "So congratulations on your wedding," Zoe said, addressing Caleb and Brooke. "I hope you get everything you deserve. As for me, I already have everything I need. A mother who knows how to stay." She walked toward me through the silent crowd, every step deliberate. When she reached me, she held out her hand. "Come on, Mom. Let's go home." I took her hand and stood. Together, we walked through that beautiful room full of beautiful people, living their beautiful lives. The crowd parted like the Red Sea. Some watched with shock, others with something like respect. Sharon started clapping. Then another woman. Then another. By the time we reached the door, half the room was applauding. We didn't look back. The night air hit my lungs like a revelation. I gulped it down, trying to steady myself. My hands shook as I fumbled for the valet ticket. "Mom." Zoe touched my arm. "Are you okay? I should be asking you that." My voice cracked. "Zoe, your father is not my father. Not anymore." She pulled off her bow tie and threw it in a nearby trash can. "Fathers don't disappear. Fathers don't let their new wife trash the woman who raised their kid. He's just Caleb now. Some guy who contributed DNA." The valet brought my car around, that beautiful, embarrassing Honda that had carried us through everything. We climbed in and I started the engine, but I couldn't seem to put it in drive. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I'm so sorry you had to do that." "I'm not." Zoe clicked her seatbelt. "I've wanted to say that for 5 years. Do you know he never called? Not once. Not on my birthday, not when I graduated, not when I got into college. He just erased us. But tonight he learned that you can't rewrite history just because you don't like how it makes you look." She turned to face me fully. "Mom, you need to know something. I didn't stay with you because I had nowhere else to go. I stayed because you were the only parent who ever really saw me. Even when my biological mom was alive, I was just there. Background noise in their marriage. But you? You asked about my day. You remembered my friends' names. You stayed up learning algebra so you could help me with homework. My throat was so tight I could barely breathe. And when everything fell apart, you could have sent me with him. Could have said I wasn't your responsibility. But you didn't. You chose me when choosing me made everything harder. So yeah, I'm going to defend you. Every time. Because that's what you do for family. We sat there in the parking lot of that stupid, perfect vineyard, holding hands across the center console while my hazard lights blinked in the darkness. I could hear music from the reception, the party continuing without us. Good. Let them dance on the grave of Caleb's version of history. Let's go home, I said finally. Wait. Zoe pulled out her phone. I need to do something first. She typed quickly, then showed me the screen. She'd posted to her Instagram a photo of us from last Christmas, both of us in matching pajamas I'd bought as a joke, laughing at something off camera. The caption read, "This is my mom. She didn't give birth to me, but she gave me life. Tonight, someone tried to rewrite our story. This is the only version that matters. Number, chosen family, number, second bloom number, real love. Zoe." It already has 50 likes. She grinned. Want to bet it goes viral by morning? I laughed, surprising myself. Your generation and your internet justice. Hey. You started a whole blog about surviving abandonment. I learned from the best. We drove home through the California hills, windows down, my ancient car protesting every incline. Zoe connected her phone and played our road trip playlist, the one we'd made for college visits, full of songs that made us sing too loud and dance in our seats. Halfway home, my phone started buzzing. Then Zoe's. Then both continuously. Holy shit, Zoe breathed, scrolling. Mom, someone posted a video. The whole speech. It's already at 10,000 views. What? Server reveals truth at father's wedding. She read the comments out loud. This girl is my hero. The way she stood up for her stepmom, I'm crying. Found the mom's blog and wow, everyone needs to read this. My blog traffic would be insane. The carefully curated life Brooke had built would be scrutinized. Caleb would have to answer questions he'd spent 5 years avoiding. I probably should have felt guilty. I didn't. Are you okay with this? I asked Zoe. This kind of attention. Are you kidding? I've been waiting 5 years for the world to know what kind of man he really is. What kind of woman you really are. She squeezed my hand. Besides, someone needed to tell the truth. Might as well be the daughter he forgot he had. We pulled into our drive-wire tiny rental house with the overgrown garden and the porch that needed painting. It had never looked more beautiful. By morning, the video had 1 million views. I woke to my phone having a complete meltdown, calls, texts, emails, notifications from every social media platform I'd forgotten I had. Zoe was already up, sitting at the kitchen table with her laptop, looking like a general conducting a war campaign. Coffee's ready, she said without looking up. Also, Good Morning America wants an interview. I choked on air. What? Someone found your blog and connected the dots. Viral wedding speech leads to inspiring story of chosen family. You're trending on Twitter. She spun her laptop around. Look, someone made a TikTok compilation of your best blog posts set to that Sarah McLachlan song. It has 2 million views. I sank into a chair. This wasn't supposed to happen. We were supposed to go to the wedding, survive it, and move on with our lives. Not become internet famous overnight. There's more, Zoe said carefully. Caleb's business partners are distancing themselves. Apparently, abandoning your family doesn't play well with the wine country set. And Brooke. She turned her phone toward me. Brooke had posted a Notes app apology at 3 a.m. The kind written in panic and whine, full of taken out of context and didn't mean to cause harm and private family matters. The internet wasn't buying it. I don't want to destroy anyone, I said quietly. Not even them. You didn't. I did. Zoe closed her laptop. And I'm not sorry. They tried to rewrite history to make themselves feel better. All I did was tell the truth. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Helena? The voice was uncertain, older. This is Margaret Layton. Brooke's mother. I motioned for Zoe to stay quiet. Mrs. Layton. I owe you an apology. I was at the wedding last night. I saw what my daughter did, what she said. A pause. I raised her better than that. Or I thought I did. I didn't know what to say to that. I follow your blog, she continued. Have for years, didn't know you were Caleb's ex-wife until last night. I'd like to make a donation to your foundation. A substantial one. It won't undo what happened, but maybe it can help other women like you. Like us. Mrs. Layton, you don't have to. Please. Let me do this. Brooke might be my daughter, but that doesn't mean I have to condone cruelty. Her voice hardened. And what she said about your miscarriage. There are lines you don't cross. We talked for a few more minutes. By the time I hung up, she'd pledged $50,000 to Second Bloom and asked to join our board of directors. Plot twist, Zoe said. The mother-in-law from hell is actually cool. The next weeks were a blur. I did the Good Morning America interview, talking about chosen families and rebuilding after loss. The publisher who'd been circling offered a book deal I couldn't refuse. Speaking requests poured in. Second Bloom grew from a blog to a movement, with chapters starting nationwide. Zoe started her podcast, Daughters by Choice, interviewing other kids who'd been raised by step-parents, adoptive parents, grandparents, anyone who'd chosen to love them. Her first episode, about our story, crashed her hosting site from too many downloads. Through it all, Caleb stayed silent. No public statement, no private message, nothing. It was so perfectly him letting others clean up his messes while he waited for the storm to pass. But Brooke broke. 3 weeks after the wedding, she showed up at our door. She looked different without the Instagram filters and perfect lighting. Smaller. Somehow. Her designer sundress was wrinkled, her roots showing, mascara smudged like she'd been crying in her car. I know I have no right to be here, she said before I could speak. I could have slammed the door. Should have, probably. Instead, I stepped aside. Coffee? She followed me to the kitchen, taking in our small space with something like wonder. It's nice. Homey. It's home. I poured 2 mugs. Zoe's at class. Did you need her? Number I came to see you. She wrapped her hands around the mug like she was cold, though it was 70 degrees out. He left me. I waited. The morning after the wedding. Said the attention was too much, that I'd ruined his reputation. That I'd cost him business deals. A bitter laugh. 5 years I spent building our life, our image. One night of truth and he walks away. I'm sorry, I said. And found I meant it. Are you? She looked up, mascara tracking down her cheeks. I was horrible to you. Said unforgivable things. I tried to hurt you in front of everyone. Yes. You did. She flinched at my directness. I was jealous. Not of him, God, not of him. Of you. Of what you built without him. He talked about you sometimes, you know. Late at night, after too much wine. How you'd started over, how successful your blog was getting. It made him furious. Why? Because you were supposed to fall apart without him. That was the narrative. He was the strong one, the successful one. You were supposed to prove he made the right choice by failing. She wiped her eyes. Instead, you thrived. And Zoe chose you. Do you know how much that ate at him? His own daughter picking the stepmother over him? I thought of all the nights Zoe and I had struggled, all the ramen dinners and overdue bills and panic attacks in grocery store aisles. Thriving was a generous interpretation. We survived, I said. That's all. Number. You built a family. A real one. I spent 5 years trying to create that with him, but you can't build something real on a foundation of lies. She set down her mug. I came to apologize. And to ask, how do you do it? How do you start over when you've lost everything? I could have been petty. Could have told her she'd made her bed. Instead, I saw a woman in her 30s who'd bet everything on the wrong man and lost. I'd been her once. You start small, I heard myself saying. One day. One decision. One truth at a time. You stop trying to be who someone else wants and figure out who you are. And you surround yourself with people who love that person, not the image. She cried then, really cried. Not the pretty tears of her wedding speech but ugly, soul-deep sobs. I handed her tissues and let her get it out. I'm pregnant, she whispered when she could speak again. Found out yesterday. And my first thought was that he'll leave me like he left you. Then leave first, I said. On your terms. Build the life you want your child to see. She left an hour later with a list of resources, a therapist recommendation, and an invitation to Second Bloom's next meeting. I watched her drive away and felt something shift in my chest. Not forgiveness exactly, but release. Zoe came home to find me in the garden, pulling weeds with unnecessary violence. Brooke was here, I said. Caleb left. She's pregnant. Karma's a bitch. She sat beside me in the dirt. You okay? Yeah. I think I am. I told her about the conversation. Maybe I should hate her. But I just feel free. Like that was the last piece of letting go. You know what this means? Zoe grinned. You're officially the bigger person. I, however, am still petty enough to enjoy that he's getting divorced 6 months after abandoning us for his perfect life. Zoe. What? I contain multitudes. I can be evolved and still appreciate poetic justice. That night, over Chinese takeout, from a better place now that we could afford it, we talked about the future. My book deadline. Her graduate school applications. The house we were saving to buy, with room for an office, and a garden that wasn't made of containers on a patio. I want to ask you something, Zoe said, twirling lo mein on her fork. The podcast is taking off. Book Talk wants me to write about our story. But it's your story too. I won't do it if. It's our story, I interrupted. Tell it however you want. I trust you. She smiled, that rare, full smile that transformed her face. You know what I want to call it? Chosen. A love story between mothers and daughters. Because that's what we are. Chosen family. My eyes burned. 5 years ago, I'd lost a husband and a pregnancy. I'd thought my life was over. Instead, I'd gained a daughter who chose me every day, a community of survivors who became sisters, a voice that helped others find theirs. I love you, kid, I said. Love you too, Mom. 6 months later, on a quiet Sunday morning, I was washing dishes when Zoe padded into the kitchen. She was home for spring break, her first year of grad school kicking her ass in the best way. Can't sleep? I asked. Thinking. She poured orange juice, fancy stuff now, not from concentrate. Remember what I said at the wedding? About wishing my biological mom hadn't left so I could have my real mom? My hands stilled in the soapy water. I need you to know something, she continued. Every bad thing that happened, Dad leaving, the miscarriage, the debt, all of it, I'm grateful. Not for the pain, never for that. But for where it led us. For who we became because of it. I turned, drying my hands on a dish towel covered in cartoon avocados, Zoe's gift last Christmas. If none of that had happened, we'd just be Helena and Zoe, stepmom and stepdaughter, orbiting each other politely. Instead, we're this. Whatever this is. And I wouldn't trade it for a perfect family. Not ever. She hugged me then, fierce and sudden. Not the careful hugs of our early days, but the kind that said home without words. You saved me. She whispered into my shoulder. We saved each other, I whispered back. Later, I sat on our new porch attached to our own house, bought with book advances and speaking fees and a foundation salary, and wrote. Not about pain or abandonment or starting over. About love that chooses you back. About daughters who teach you strength. About the family you build from the ashes of the one that burned down. My phone buzzed. A message from a reader. Your story gave me hope that I can survive this. That maybe something beautiful can grow from something broken. I smiled and typed back. It can. It will. Just start with today. Zoe joined me on the porch, 2 cups of coffee in hand. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun rise over our small town that had become our launching pad to everywhere. What are you thinking about? She asked. How I went to that wedding to prove we'd survived without him. But really, we did something better. What's that? I looked at my daughter, brilliant, fierce, loyal, beyond measure. We learned we were never really broken, just becoming. She raised her coffee mug. To becoming. To choosing each other. We clinked mugs as the morning light painted everything gold, and I knew with absolute certainty, I hadn't lost anything that mattered. I'd found everything I needed. Sometimes the best families are the ones that choose you back, again and again, even when choosing is hard. Especially then. And that's the only truth that matters.